My name is Tom, and for the past 25 years, I've built a successful architecture firm in the heart of the city. The city itself is a bustling metropolis, alive with the hum of cars, the chatter of people, and the ceaseless construction that symbolizes growth and change. My office is located on the 23rd floor of a sleek glass building, offering a panoramic view of the city's skyline. Each day, as I look out at the horizon, I am reminded of how far I've come. At 50, I've achieved what many consider the epitome of professional success. The firm I founded started as a small consultancy, just a few people with big dreams and a cramped office space. Now, it is a renowned name in the industry, known for innovative designs and landmark projects that shape the cityscape. My days are filled with meetings, site visits, and the ever-present challenge of balancing creativity with practicality. Despite the demanding nature of my work, I've always found a sense of fulfillment in shaping the spaces where people live and work. My passion for architecture began in my childhood, spending hours sketching buildings and dreaming of the day when I could bring those sketches to life. I pursued my education with a singular focus, knowing that this was what I was meant to do. Over the years, I've poured my heart and soul into my work, each project a testament to my dedication and vision. The city has become my canvas, and my firm's projects are the brushstrokes that contribute to its ever-evolving landscape. At home, life seemed just as rewarding. My wife Lisa and I have been married for 15 years. Lisa is a beautiful woman with an easy smile and a nurturing spirit that drew me to her from the start. We met at a charity event VDJ, a fundraiser for the local children's hospital. I was there to network, but Lisa's genuine warmth and kindness captivated me. We struck up a conversation, and I quickly realized that she was someone special. Our relationship blossomed, and before long, we were inseparable. We have 2 children who are the light of our lives. Jake, our 12-year-old son, is an energetic and curious boy who loves soccer and video games. He's got my competitive spirit and Lisa's kindness, a perfect blend that makes him a joy to be around. Sarah, our 10-year-old daughter, is a budding artist. Her room is filled with drawings and paintings of fantastical worlds, each one more imaginative than the last. She has Lisa's creative spark and my attention to detail, making her artwork truly remarkable. Our home is a cozy haven in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It's a 2-story house with a garden where the kids play, and where Lisa and I often sit with a glass of wine after the children are in bed. We chose this neighborhood because it's close enough to the city for convenience, but far enough to offer peace and tranquility. The house itself is a blend of our tastes, VDJ modern yet warm, with plenty of natural light and open spaces that reflect my love for design and Lisa's love for comfort. Weekends are filled with family activities, VJ soccer matches, art classes, and visits to the park. We have a tradition of Saturday morning pancakes, where the kitchen turns into a joyful mess as Jake and Sarah compete to make the funniest pancake shapes. These moments, filled with laughter and love, are what I cherish the most. They remind me that despite the pressures of work, I have a family that makes it all worthwhile. We've built routines that provide stability and comfort. Sunday evenings are reserved for family game nights, where we gather around the living room table and play board games until the kids are too tired to continue. Holidays are celebrated with warmth and joy, with Lisa going all out to decorate the house and make everything special. Birthdays are particularly festive, with Lisa's homemade cakes and the kids' excited anticipation of presents and parties. Our life, from the outside, seemed perfect. We were the kind of family that neighbors envied and friends admired. We hosted barbecues in the summer, inviting friends and family for afternoons filled with good food and laughter. We went on vacations to picturesque locations, creating memories that we would treasure forever. Our photo albums are filled with snapshots of these happy times, DJ beach trips, hiking adventures, and candid moments of joy. But beneath the surface, subtle cracks were beginning to form. Looking back, the signs were there. But I was too caught up in the whirlwind of work and family to notice them. It was easy to assume that we would always be this happy, that our love and commitment would carry us through any storm. I couldn't have been more wrong. In retrospect, I realized that I had taken a lot for granted. I had assumed that Lisa would always be there, that our bond was unbreakable. I didn't see the small changes in her demeanor, the moments when she seemed distant or preoccupied. I was too busy with work, too focused on my projects, to notice that Lisa was searching for something more, something she felt was missing. The foundation of our marriage, which I believed to be rock solid, was beginning to show signs of wear. The love and trust we had built over the years were being tested in ways I never imagined. And as the months went by, those subtle cracks began to widen, setting the stage for the unraveling of everything I held dear. As the years rolled by, Lisa started looking for ways to fill her time while the kids were at school and I was busy with work. She joined a local yoga club, initially attending classes a couple of times a week. I encouraged it, believing it was a healthy outlet for her. She seemed happier, more energetic, and the physical activity did wonders for her spirits. Watching her flourish brought me joy, as I believed it was important for her to have something she was passionate about outside of our family life. But as Lisa's involvement with the yoga club deepened, her presence at home started to wane. What began as a casual pastime quickly transformed into a significant part of her life. She wasn't just attending classes anymore. She was volunteering at events, organizing retreats, and forming close friendships with the other members. I didn't mind at first. I was glad she found something she was passionate about. After all, everyone needs an escape, a place where they feel they belong. It wasn't long before the yoga club started to dominate our conversations. Lisa would talk endlessly about her new friends, the latest yoga poses she mastered, and the various activities she was involved in. I listened, trying to share her enthusiasm, but a part of me missed the days when we would talk about our dreams, our future, and the small joys of daily life. Our conversations, once filled with warmth and intimacy, began to feel one-sided and superficial. Gradually, I noticed she was spending less time at home. Her evenings were often occupied with yoga events, and weekends became dedicated to retreats. She would leave early in the morning and return late at night, looking exhausted but strangely elated. Our once frequent family dinners became rare, and the kids started asking why Mom was always away. Her absences were felt deeply, and I could see the confusion in Jake and Sarah's eyes. Jake, always perceptive, would ask, "Dad, why is Mom always at yoga? Doesn't she want to be with us anymore?" His innocent questions pierced my heart. I reassured him, telling him that his mother was just very busy with her new commitments, and that she loved us all very much. But even as I said the words, I felt a growing unease. The reality was that Lisa was becoming more of a stranger each day. The turning point came one evening when she came home particularly late. I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. The kids were already in bed. She walked in, her face flushed, and her explanation was vague and hurried. "The event ran longer than expected," she said, avoiding my gaze. There was a defensiveness in her tone that made my heart sink. I began to feel a growing distance between us. Our conversations dwindled to surface-level pleasantries and logistical details about the kids' schedules and household chores. The intimacy we once shared seemed to vanish, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Lisa's phone became a constant companion, always in her hand or within reach. She would step out of the room to take calls, her voice hushed and secretive. One night, I woke up to find her missing from our bed. I found her downstairs in the living room, engrossed in her phone. When I asked what she was doing, she quickly put it away, saying she couldn't sleep and decided to catch up on some emails. But the look in her eyes told a different story. She seemed distant, distracted, and there was a tension in her that I couldn't ignore. It was then that a gnawing suspicion began to take root in my mind. Something was wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage was slowly unraveling. The woman I had loved and trusted for so many years was becoming a stranger, and I was powerless to stop it. The fear of losing her, of losing the life we had built together, haunted me. But I was determined to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. In the following weeks, I tried to bridge the growing gap between us. I suggested date nights, tried to engage her in conversations about our future, and even offered to join her at some of her yoga events, but each attempt was met with reluctance or indifference. Lisa would smile and agree, but her heart wasn't in it. It was as if she was physically present but emotionally miles away. The changes in her were subtle but unmistakable. She started dressing differently, choosing clothes that were more youthful and stylish. She spent more time on her appearance, something she hadn't done for years. Her behavior at home became increasingly erratic. She would laugh too loudly at things that weren't funny and get irritated over minor issues. It was as if she was living a double life, and the part she showed us was just a facade. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that it was just a phase, and that things would return to normal. But the evidence of her growing distance was all around me. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the evasive answers VDJ, they all pointed to something more than just a newfound passion for yoga. My work began to suffer as my mind was constantly preoccupied with thoughts of Lisa. I found it hard to concentrate during meetings, and my colleagues noticed my distraction. I knew I had to address the situation before it completely consumed me, but I didn't know where to start. Confronting Lisa seemed like an insurmountable task. What if I was wrong? What if my suspicions were unfounded? But the fear of the unknown was worse than any potential confrontation. The turning point came one night when Lisa came home even later than usual. She looked different VDJ, happier, almost glowing. She was more distant than ever, and her vague explanations did nothing to alleviate my growing concerns. It was then that I realized I could no longer live in this state of uncertainty. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I resolved to find out what was really going on. The distance between us had grown too wide to ignore, and the future of our family depended on uncovering the truth. With a heavy heart, I began to prepare myself for what lay ahead, knowing that my life might never be the same again. The suspicion that had been gnawing at my mind soon became impossible to ignore. Lisa's behavior grew increasingly secretive. She was always on edge, her phone constantly buzzing with messages she would quickly hide. Weekends, once filled with family activities, were now dedicated to yoga retreats she said she couldn't miss. The unease in our home was palpable, and I knew I couldn't live in this state of uncertainty any longer. One evening, as I was tidying up the kitchen after dinner, I found a receipt tucked away in Lisa's purse. It was from an upscale restaurant downtown, dated for a night she had claimed to be at a yoga event. My heart pounded as I stared at the piece of paper, the elegant logo mocking my naivety. Why would she lie about where she was? The doubts that had been whispering in my mind now roared with newfound clarity. I had to know the truth. That night, while Lisa was in the shower, I mustered the courage to check her phone. My hands trembled as I navigated through her messages, feeling like an intruder in my own life. It didn't take long to find what I feared most. A text thread with a man named Mark, filled with flirtatious exchanges and plans for future meetings. My breath caught in my throat when I read Mark's last message. Can't wait to see you again. Dinner was perfect. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to make sense of what I had just discovered. The room seemed to close in around me, and the world I had known shifted on its axis. I was reeling from the shock, but I knew I couldn't confront Lisa without concrete proof. I needed to be sure, to have irrefutable evidence before I brought this dark secret into the light. The following Saturday, I told Lisa I had a work meeting and watched her leave for her supposed yoga retreat. I felt a mixture of guilt and determination as I followed her car from a distance, my heart racing with every turn. She drove across town to a quaint little café GC, far from the yoga club. From my vantage point in the parking lot, I saw her enter the café GC and sit at a corner table. Moments later, a man joined her. Even from afar, their body language spoke volumes. They leaned in close, shared intimate smiles, and touched each other's hands across the table. It was Mark, and the connection between them was undeniable. I snapped several photos, each one a nail in the coffin of our marriage. Each click of the camera shutter felt like a betrayal, not just by Lisa, but by the life we had built together. It was like watching a beautiful structure, meticulously designed and constructed, crumble into ruins. As I drove home, my mind raced with the implications of what I had witnessed. The woman I had loved for 15 years was having an affair, and the foundation of our family was cracking under the weight of her deceit. But now, I had the proof I needed. The next step was confronting Lisa and facing the reality of our fractured marriage. When I got home, I felt like an actor in a tragic play, going through the motions of normalcy while my mind was in turmoil. Lisa returned later that evening, her face glowing with the same strange elation I had noticed before. She kissed me on the cheek and greeted the kids, her demeanor seemingly unaffected by the duplicity she was living. That night, after putting Jake and Sarah to bed, I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling. The proof of Lisa's betrayal weighed heavily on my mind. I thought about our life together, the memories we had shared, and the future I had envisioned for us and our children. All of it seemed to hang in the balance, threatened by the deceit I had uncovered. I decided to wait a few days before confronting Lisa, to gather my thoughts and plan my approach. During those days, I tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but inside, I was a wreck. The kids noticed my distraction, and I felt a pang of guilt every time Jake or Sarah asked if everything was okay. I reassured them as best as I could, but the truth loomed large in my mind, an unavoidable confrontation on the horizon. On the third day, I accessed Lisa's email account again. I needed more evidence to bolster my case. I found countless emails from Mark, each one more intimate than the last. They spoke of secret rendezvous, shared dreams, and the thrill of their hidden romance. One email, in particular, caught my eye. It was from several months ago and detailed a weekend getaway they had planned the same weekend Lisa had told me she was on a yoga retreat. Reading their words felt like a punch to the gut. Their plans were filled with passion and excitement, a stark contrast to the growing distance and coldness I had felt in my marriage. The realization that our life, the one I thought was built on trust and love, had been a facade, was devastating. I printed out the emails, each one a piece of the puzzle that revealed the full picture of Lisa's affair. Armed with this undeniable proof, I knew it was time to confront her. There was no turning back now. That evening, after putting the kids to bed, I waited for Lisa in the living room. My heart pounded as I heard the sound of her keys in the door. She walked in, her face lighting up with a practiced smile that faded as soon as she saw the expression on my face. "Tom, what's wrong?" she asked, a note of apprehension creeping into her voice. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I held out the stack of printed emails. "These," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "These are what's wrong." Lisa's eyes widened as she took the papers from my hand, her face paling as she read through the emails. She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Tom, I can explain," she began, but I cut her off. "Explain? Explain how you've been lying to me, to our kids. Explain how you've been sneaking around with Mark while pretending everything was fine?" My voice rose with each word, the pent-up anger and hurt spilling out. She crumpled into the nearest chair, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I felt so disconnected, so lost, and Mark VJJ, he made me feel alive again." Her words stung, but they also brought a twisted sense of clarity. The distance I had felt, the late nights, the evasiveness VAJ, it all made sense now. The woman I had loved and trusted had been leading a double life, and the foundation of our marriage had been eroded by her deceit. "I don't care about your excuses, Lisa," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "You've betrayed me, and you've betrayed our family. There's no coming back from this." The room fell silent, the weight of her actions hanging heavily in the air. The life we had built together lay in tatters, and there was no way to piece it back together. The only path forward was to confront the reality of our shattered marriage and decide what came next. Determined to uncover the full extent of Lisa's betrayal, I decided to dig deeper. The photos I had taken were a stark confirmation of her infidelity, but I needed more. I needed to understand how long this had been going on, and how deeply she was entangled with Mark. One night, while Lisa was out at another yoga event, I sat down at her computer. She had always been meticulous about keeping her emails private, but in her haste she had left her email account logged in. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a wave of guilt washing over me. But the need for truth pushed me forward. As I scrolled through her inbox, my worst fears were confirmed. There were countless emails from Mark, each one more intimate than the last. They spoke of secret rendezvous, shared dreams, and the thrill of their hidden romance. One email in particular caught my eye. It was from several months ago and detailed a weekend getaway they had planned. The same weekend Lisa had told me she was on a yoga retreat. Reading their words felt like a punch to the gut. Their plans were filled with passion and excitement, a stark contrast to the growing distance and coldness I had felt in my marriage. The realization that our life, the one I thought was built on trust and love, had been a facade was devastating. I printed out the emails, each one a piece of the puzzle that revealed the full picture of Lisa's affair. Armed with this undeniable proof, I knew it was time to confront her. There was no turning back now. That evening, after putting the kids to bed, I confronted Lisa. I waited for her in the living room, my heart pounding as I heard her car pull into the driveway. When she walked in, she looked surprised to see me waiting for her. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I held out the stack of printed emails. "These," I said, my voice steady but filled with anger. "These are what's wrong." Lisa's eyes widened as she took the papers from my hand. She sank into a chair, her face growing pale as she read through the emails. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Tom, I can explain," she began, but I cut her off. "Explain? Explain how you've been lying to me, to our kids? Explain how you've been sneaking around with Mark while pretending everything was fine?" My voice rose with each word, the pent-up anger and hurt spilling out. She crumpled the papers in her hands, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I felt so disconnected, so lost. And Mark, he made me feel alive again." Her words stung, but they also brought a twisted sense of clarity. The distance I had felt, the late nights, the evasiveness, it all made sense now. The woman I had loved and trusted had been leading a double life, and the foundation of our marriage had been eroded by her deceit. "I don't care about your excuses, Lisa," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "You've betrayed me, and you've betrayed our family. There's no coming back from this." The room fell silent, the weight of her actions hanging heavily in the air. The life we had built together lay in tatters, and there was no way to piece it back together. The only path forward was to confront the reality of our shattered marriage and decide what came next. Lisa broke down completely, her sobs echoing through the empty house. "I never wanted it to end like this," she whispered. "I still love you, Tom. I just lost my way." But her words rang hollow. Love wasn't supposed to hurt like this, wasn't supposed to be filled with lies and deceit. My mind was made up. "It's too late, Lisa. The damage is done." Over the next few days, the atmosphere in our house was unbearably tense. Lisa and I avoided each other, speaking only when absolutely necessary and only about the logistics of daily life. The kids sensed something was terribly wrong. Jake, always observant, asked why Mom and Dad were so sad. Sarah, sensing the tension but not fully understanding it, clung to me more than usual. I knew I had to take steps to protect our children from the fallout of Lisa's betrayal. I started documenting everything, preparing for the legal battles that were sure to come. I contacted a lawyer, explained the situation, and began to gather all the evidence I had. The emails, the photos, the receipts, everything that proved Lisa's infidelity. My lawyer was sympathetic but professional, assuring me that we had a strong case for divorce and full custody of the children. During this time, Lisa made several attempts to talk to me, to explain her side of the story, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. Every time I looked at her, all I could see was the betrayal. I needed time to process everything, to come to terms with the fact that the woman I had loved and trusted had been unfaithful. One evening, after the kids were in bed, Lisa approached me in the living room. "Tom, we need to talk," she said quietly. "I looked up from the documents I was reviewing. There's nothing to talk about, Lisa. You made your choices, and now we have to deal with the consequences." She sighed, sitting down across from me. "I know I hurt you, and I can't undo what I've done. But please, let's try to work through this for the sake of our children. They deserve to have both their parents in their lives." Her plea was heartfelt, but it didn't change the fact that our trust was shattered. I agree, Jake and Sarah deserve stability, but the best way to provide that is to end this marriage and create a new, healthier environment for them. Tears filled her eyes again, but she nodded. "If that's what you truly believe is best, then I won't fight you. I just want our kids to be happy." As the days turned into weeks, the reality of our situation began to set in. We started the process of divorce, and I moved into the guest room to create some physical distance between us. The house felt emptier, the silence between us deafening. I focused on my work and my children, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Jake and Sarah were my top priority, and I wanted to shield them from the pain and confusion as much as possible. I enrolled them in therapy to help them process their emotions, and I made sure to spend quality time with them, reassuring them that both their parents loved them deeply. Through it all, I kept my emotions in check, determined to get through this for the sake of my children. The betrayal had cut deep, but I knew I had to stay strong. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the truth and a determination to rebuild my life from the ashes of our broken marriage. With the evidence of Lisa's betrayal in hand, the next steps were clear. The betrayal had cut deep, but I was determined to protect my children and ensure they had a stable future. My first step was to consult with a lawyer. Armed with the emails and photos, I had a strong case for divorce and full custody of Jake and Sarah. The legal process was daunting, but the thought of safeguarding my children's well-being gave me the strength to push forward. I contacted a reputable law firm that specialized in family law. My lawyer, a compassionate yet assertive woman named Karen, listened patiently as I recounted the details of my marriage, Lisa's affair, and my concerns about the children. She reassured me that I had a solid case and that we would fight to protect my interests and those of my children. "We'll start by filing for divorce and requesting full custody," Karen explained. "Given the evidence of Lisa's infidelity and her recent behavior, we have a strong chance of securing custody. Well, also work on a fair division of assets." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "Thank you, Karen. I just want to make sure Jake and Sarah are taken care of." "We'll make sure of that, Tom," she replied, her tone firm and reassuring. Over the next few weeks, Karen and her team worked tirelessly to prepare our case. I gathered all the evidence I had, including the emails, photos, and receipts, and provided detailed accounts of Lisa's behavior over the past few months. It was a painful process, reliving the moments of betrayal and deception, but I knew it was necessary. During this time, Lisa's attempts to reach out to me became more desperate. She sent me long messages, pleading for forgiveness and asking for a chance to make things right. But my heart had hardened. The pain she had caused was too great, and I couldn't find it in myself to forgive. Instead, I focused on the divorce settlement. One evening, after the kids were in bed, I decided to confront Lisa with the evidence I had gathered. She was in the living room, sitting on the couch with a book in her lap, but I could tell she wasn't reading. She looked up as I entered the room, her expression wary. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and resolute. She nodded, setting the book aside. "Okay." I sat down across from her, placing the stack of printed emails and photos on the table between us. "I've filed for divorce," I said bluntly, "and I'm going for full custody of Jake and Sarah. You'll hear from my lawyer soon." Lisa's face crumpled as she looked at the documents. "Tom, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "We can work this out. Think about the kids." "I am thinking about the kids," I replied, my voice steely. "They deserve stability, and they deserve parents who can be honest with them. You've broken that trust, Lisa. This is the best way forward." She sobbed, clutching the papers, but I'd already made up my mind. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles, tense negotiations, and heart-wrenching conversations with Jake and Sarah. I did my best to shield them from the worst of it, but they were smart kids. They knew something was deeply wrong. The legal process was grueling. Karen and her team meticulously documented every piece of evidence, building a case that would stand up in court. Lisa hired her own lawyer, and the negotiations began. It was a tense and emotionally charged period, with both sides fighting for what they believed was best for the children. During one particularly sleepless night, I accessed Lisa's email account again. I needed more evidence to bolster my case. I found intimate messages between her and Mark, planning getaways, expressing their love, and even discussing the possibility of a future together. The betrayal stung afresh with each word I read, but this time, it wasn't just about my broken heart. It was about building an irrefutable case to secure my children's future. With the additional evidence, our case grew stronger. Karen was confident that we would succeed in securing full custody. "We're in a good position, Tom," she said during one of our meetings. "The judge will see that you're acting in the best interests of your children." As the court date approached, I prepared myself for the possibility of facing Lisa in court. I knew it would be difficult, but I was determined to do whatever it took to protect Jake and Sarah. The thought of them being caught in the middle of this battle was heartbreaking, but I believed it was necessary to ensure their well-being. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. I dressed in my best suit, hoping to convey a sense of stability and responsibility. Karen met me at the courthouse, her presence a steadying influence. "Are you ready?" she asked. her eyes searching mine. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, taking a deep breath. We entered the courtroom, and I saw Lisa sitting with her lawyer on the opposite side. She looked fragile, her eyes red from crying. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. This wasn't about us anymore. It was about our children. The hearing was intense. Both sides presented their cases, with Karen laying out the evidence of Lisa's infidelity and her recent behavior. Lisa's lawyer tried to paint a different picture, emphasizing her commitment to the children and her desire to work things out. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the judge listened carefully to both sides. After several hours of testimony and deliberation, the judge delivered his ruling. He granted me full custody of Jake and Sarah, citing Lisa's infidelity and the instability it had caused as significant factors in his decision. Lisa was granted supervised visitation rights, a decision made in the best interest of the children. As the judge's words sank in, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The battle was over, but the scars it had left were deep. Lisa looked devastated, her face crumpling as she realized the full extent of what she had lost. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of sorrow for what our family had become. In the days that followed, I focused on creating a stable and loving environment for Jake and Sarah. Therapy became a lifeline for us, helping to navigate the complex emotions of betrayal and loss. I poured my energy into being the best father I could be, determined to provide my children with the love and support they needed. Lisa, on the other hand, struggled with the consequences of her actions. She had lost not only her marriage but also her role as a primary caregiver to our children. It was a hard lesson, and one that she would have to come to terms with on her own. Through it all, I kept my emotions in check, determined to get through this for the sake of my children. The betrayal had cut deep, but I knew I had to stay strong. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the truth and a determination to rebuild my life from the ashes of our broken marriage. A storm of emotions raged within me, anger, betrayal, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of clarity. Instead of taking a calculated approach, I decided on severe revenge. The evidence of Lisa's affair had not only helped in court, but also provided the means for a calculated revenge. My goal was to ensure she faced the full consequences of her actions. First, I turned my attention to securing full custody of Jake and Sarah. The court had seen the overwhelming evidence of Lisa's infidelity, and her unstable lifestyle post-scandal made my case stronger. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me full custody. Lisa's time with the children was limited to supervised visits, a decision made in their best interest. This legal victory gave me a sense of vindication, but it wasn't enough. I needed Lisa to feel the depth of her betrayal in every aspect of her life. Next, I focused on Lisa's social standing. Our once perfect suburban life had been shattered by her actions, and I felt it was only fair that her public persona should reflect the reality of her behavior. I meticulously compiled all the evidence of her affair VJ emails, photos, and receipts VJ and prepared to distribute them to our social circle. The first step was to inform our friends and family. I sent the evidence to everyone in our immediate social network. The reaction was swift and dramatic. Friends who had once admired Lisa for her charm and warmth were shocked and appalled. The whispers and gossip spread quickly, and Lisa's reputation took a nosedive. Our social gatherings, once filled with laughter and camaraderie, became tense and uncomfortable as people struggled to reconcile the Lisa they thought they knew with the woman who had betrayed her family. But I didn't stop there. I sent the evidence to members of her yoga club, the place where she had found solace and community. The scandal erupted within the club, and Lisa found herself ostracized by the very people she had considered her friends. The yoga club, which had once been her sanctuary, turned into a place of judgment and exclusion. The members gossiped, and the whispers followed her everywhere she went. Her once pristine reputation was in tatters. Lisa's job was the next target. She had always been proud of her professional achievements, and her job was a significant part of her identity. I forwarded the intimate messages and photos to her employer, a respected local business where Lisa had built her career. The fallout was immediate and severe. Her boss, concerned about the company's reputation, had no choice but to terminate her employment. She lost her job, her financial security, and the professional respect she had worked so hard to earn. The final blow came during the divorce settlement. Lisa would try to claim a significant portion of our assets, But I wasn't going to let that happen. I hired the best lawyer I could find, and together we crafted a strategy that left Lisa with minimal financial support. The settlement ensured that Jake and Sarah were provided for, but Lisa was left with the bare minimum. The lavish lifestyle she had enjoyed was stripped away, and she was left to face the reality of her actions. With the legal battles behind me, I focused on creating a stable and loving environment for Jake and Sarah. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our routine, helping us all process the pain and start to heal. The kids needed stability, and I was determined to provide it. We established new routines and found joy in simple activities. Weekends were filled with soccer games, art projects, and trips to the park. We rediscovered the joy of family dinners, where laughter once again filled the room. Lisa, on the other hand, struggled with the consequences of her actions. She had to rebuild her life from scratch, facing the judgment and isolation that came with her actions. Occasionally, she would reach out, trying to mend her relationship with Jake and Sarah. I allowed her to see them, but always under supervision. Their well-being was my top priority, and I wasn't ready to risk further disruption in their lives. As months turned into a year, I found myself slowly opening up to the idea of new relationships. I approached dating with caution, armed with the lessons I had learned from my failed marriage. I was honest about my past and clear about my expectations. Each encounter, whether it led to something more or not, was a step towards understanding what I truly wanted in a partner. One evening, while sitting on the porch after putting the kids to bed, I met Emily. She was a neighbor who had moved in a few months ago, a single mother with a daughter Sarah's age. Our initial conversations were casual, sharing stories about our children and the challenges of single parenthood. But over time, we grew closer, finding comfort in each other's company and shared experiences. Emily was different from anyone I had known. She was kind, understanding, and patient. She listened without judgment and offered support without expecting anything in return. Our relationship blossomed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Through this journey, I learned to value myself and to prioritize my happiness and that of my children. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy me became a catalyst for profound personal growth. I emerged stronger, more resilient, and with a clearer sense of what I wanted from life. Jake and Sarah thrived in the new environment we had created. They adapted to the changes with a resilience that inspired me daily. Our bond grew stronger, and I was filled with pride watching them navigate their own paths with confidence and grace. Lisa, though still struggling, began to make small steps towards rebuilding her life. She found a new job, started attending therapy regularly, and slowly tried to repair her relationship with the children. It was a long and difficult road, but I hoped she would find her own peace and happiness. In the end, the journey taught me a profound lesson about resilience and self-love. The road was hard, and the scars of betrayal would always be a part of me. But I emerged stronger, with a clearer vision of the future I wanted to build for myself and my children. And in that future, there was hope and the promise of happiness. With the divorce and the whirlwind of legal battles behind me, life began to take on a new shape. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken words, became a sanctuary for Jake, Sarah, and me. We focused on creating a stable and loving environment, rebuilding the warmth that had been lost. The first few months were challenging. Jake and Sarah had questions, their young minds struggling to understand why their mother was no longer living with us. I did my best to explain the situation in a way they could grasp, emphasizing that both their parents loved them deeply, even if we couldn't be together. Therapy sessions became a lifeline for us, providing a safe space for all of us to express our feelings and begin the healing process. Despite the turmoil, I was determined to make life as normal and happy as possible for my children. We established new routines that gave us structure and comfort. Weekends were filled with soccer games, art projects, and trips to the park. We rediscovered the joy of family dinners, where laughter once again filled the room. Each meal became an opportunity to share our day, our thoughts, and our dreams for the future. I poured my energy into being the best father I could be. I enrolled Jake in a new soccer league, attended every game, and cheered him on from the sidelines. For Sarah, I set up a small art studio in the basement, complete with easels, paints, and all the supplies she needed to let her creativity flourish. Seeing them smile and thrive was my greatest reward, and it reinforced my determination to provide them with a loving and stable home. As I focused on my children, I also began to look inward. The betrayal had left deep scars, but it also forced me to confront aspects of myself and my relationship that I had ignored for too long. I started attending therapy on my own, peeling back the layers of hurt and anger to understand my own needs and desires better. It was a painful but necessary journey, one that taught me the importance of resilience and self-worth. In therapy, I explored the dynamics of my marriage, the ways in which I had neglected my own needs, and the patterns of behavior that had contributed to our downfall. I learned to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made and to recognize the signs of an unhealthy relationship. This newfound self-awareness became a cornerstone of my healing process, guiding me towards healthier relationships and a stronger sense of self. Lisa, in the meantime, struggled with the consequences of her actions. She had lost her job, her social standing, and many of her friends. The life she had known was gone, replaced by a harsh reality she had to navigate alone. Occasionally, she would reach out, trying to mend her relationship with Jake and Sarah. I allowed her to see them, but always under supervision. Their well-being was my top priority, and I wasn't ready to risk further disruption in their lives. As Lisa attempted to rebuild her life, she faced numerous challenges. She moved into a small apartment, a far cry from the comfortable home we had shared. She found a new job, though it was a step down from her previous position. Slowly, she began to make amends with those she had hurt, attending therapy regularly and working on repairing her relationship with the children. It was a long and difficult road, but I hoped she would find her own peace and happiness. Over time, I found myself slowly opening up to the idea of new relationships. I approached dating with caution, armed with the lessons I had learned from my failed marriage. I was honest about my past and clear about my expectations. Each encounter, whether it led to something more or not, was a step towards understanding what I truly wanted in a partner. One evening, while sitting on the porch after putting the kids to bed, I met Emily. She was a neighbor who had moved in a few months ago, a single mother with a daughter Sarah's age. Our initial conversations were casual, sharing stories about our children and the challenges of single parenthood. But over time, we grew closer, finding comfort in each other's company and shared experiences. Emily was different from anyone I had known. She was kind, understanding, and patient. She listened without judgment and offered support without expecting anything in return. Our relationship blossomed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Emily and I spent many evenings together, talking about our pasts, our hopes for the future, and the joys and struggles of raising children on our own. She understood the pain of betrayal, having gone through a difficult divorce herself. This shared experience created a deep bond between us, one that was rooted in empathy and mutual respect. As our relationship grew, Emily became a positive influence in my life and in the lives of Jake and Sarah. Her daughter, Lily, quickly became friends with Sarah, and the two girls were often inseparable. We began to spend more time together as a blended family, going on outings and celebrating milestones. Emily's presence brought a sense of stability and warmth that had been missing for so long. Through this journey, I learned to value myself and to prioritize my happiness and that of my children. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy me became a catalyst for profound personal growth. I emerged stronger, more resilient, and with a clearer sense of what I wanted from life. Jake and Sarah thrived in the new environment we had created. They adapted to the changes with a resilience that inspired me daily. Our bond grew stronger, and I was filled with pride watching them navigate their own paths with confidence and grace. Jake continued to excel in soccer, and Sarah's artistic talents flourished. They were happy, healthy, and secure, and that was all I had ever wanted for them. Lisa, though still struggling, began to make small steps towards rebuilding her life. She found a new job, started attending therapy regularly, and slowly tried to repair her relationship with the children. It was a long and difficult road, but I hoped she would find her own peace and happiness. I remained open to the possibility of a healthier co-parenting relationship in the future, knowing that it would benefit Jake and Sarah. In the end, the journey through betrayal and heartbreak led me to a place of healing and new beginnings. I learned that while trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, It is possible to find hope and happiness again. My focus remained on creating a loving and stable environment for Jake and Sarah, and in doing so, I found a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. The scars of the past would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined my future. Instead, they served as a reminder of my resilience and the strength it took to rebuild my life from the ashes. With time, Emily and I grew even closer, and I began to see a future with her and our combined families. Our relationship was built on a foundation of honesty and mutual support, and I was grateful every day for the second chance at love and happiness. We took things slowly, knowing that we both needed time to heal and adjust, but the bond we shared grew stronger with each passing day. As the years went by, the pain of Lisa's betrayal faded into a distant memory. I focused on the positive aspects of my life, valued the love and support of my children, the companionship of Emily, and the satisfaction of knowing I had overcome incredible challenges. My journey taught me the importance of resilience, self-love, and the power of forgiveness. The future looked bright, filled with hope and endless possibilities. I had learned to value myself and to prioritize the things that truly mattered. I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength and resilience to face them head-on. And with my children by my side and Emily in my life, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the end, the journey through betrayal and heartbreak had led me to a place of healing, growth, and new beginnings. I had found happiness again, not just in a new relationship, but in the love and support of my children and the sense of purpose that came from overcoming adversity. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had emerged stronger and more resilient, ready to face whatever came next with hope and optimism.